So people usually talk about the freedom of expression within a human rights framework, about the value it has for democratic processes and as the basis for other human rights. But I think if we really want to understand the fundamental value of the freedom of expression, we have to understand what expression means to human beings. And for this, I guess we start with thinking about what makes human beings different from any other creatures in the world. And this is a question that philosophers and scientists and generally people have thought about for a long time. And one of the things they come up with, of course, is the opposable thumbs that we have, that give us a dexterity and motor skill which is denied other creatures and gives us a very unfair advantage in the animal kingdom. But does this thumb alone explain to us how we reached the moon? Does it explain how we got to the depths of the ocean? Does it explain, even more importantly, why we wanted to try in the first place? It certainly doesn't explain why in every society, in every age, in every corner of the world, people have always created art forms, music. They've given forms of expression which are physical as well as verbal. It does not explain why we nurtured crops. It doesn't explain why we invented pottery or irrigation or experimented constantly with new ways of doing things which continue to help us come up with new and complex technologies. The literature on what makes us different emphasizes the human ability for complex thoughts, which are based on observation and experiences, and imagination and curiosity. The second thing that is stressed is highly developed languages and communication. So without being expressed, human thoughts, ideas, and imagination have very little value. And without human thought and value, we are not human. And this is why it is so important, the freedom of expression. When we deny the freedom of expression to someone, we are denying them a part of what it means to be human. But of course, no two people are identical. We are all unique beings, which means that our experiences and observations lead us to different conclusions. We have different thoughts and ideas from our imaginations. Sometimes our ideas and thoughts converge and are similar, but they can also be divergent, and sometimes they're actually oppositional. And when you have different ideas, when people sit together, this leads to discussion and debate, and it leads to new ideas. Otherwise, why on earth would we do exercises of brainstorming? This is creative, collective creativity. And the divergence of opinions would not be of concern if it wasn't for the fact that human imaginations have a dark side that lead us to dark thoughts and imaginings and actions that lead and encourage violence. This is not acceptable. Human beings are quintessentially social creatures. We live in groups, and every group has for itself rules of how to engage and interact and decision making. The rules can be both written in the forms of policies, rules, and regulations, or they can be informal, unwritten, and learnt as you become part of a group. But belonging does not confer equality. And all the people in one group do not have the same amount of power. And while you have differences in different cultures and in different societies, the specifics may differ, but typically everywhere men will exercise and have greater power and over women and persons of non-binary identities. The elders will have it over youth, those who have more resources over the less resourced. And those who are also marginalized and silenced can be those who live with disabilities or are from different faiths or ethnic backgrounds. Because we are human beings, we are not perfect. And our systems are often not fair. And justice is never a given for everybody. Therefore, while we can let our imaginations run wild, the right to the freedom of expression is not absolute. Like all human rights, it is limited by the cardinal rule that you do no harm to others. This means that it does not include hate speech or incitement to violence, for instance. That is not an acceptable expression. In the end, if we want to preserve our humanity and the planet we live in, we must all strive for justice and a just system in which everyone has the right to express themselves. We must protect a plurality of views. We must understand that diversity is what makes us human. And we must learn from nature that when you have a monoculture, it depletes the soil of its nutrients. And eventually, if you continue a monoculture, you destroy the soil itself. And this is why it is absolutely critical to have freedom of expression for everyone. And we have to be able to give that freedom to everyone every day, even when, and especially when, they disagree with us and it is not what we think.